recognized it as well. It's one of my favorites. Hi, Lucy, I'm glad you're back. So sing along with us. The lyrics will be on the screen. It goes into an old hymn that you might be very familiar with, so just sing along with us.
Moved by the sound of his voice, and the seas that are shaken and stirred can become the broken
song was written, the writer of that song actually had a miscarriage and wrote that in the midst of her pain and heartache. And Alex and I have walked that road. But it's so good to know that no matter what you're going through, no matter the situation or the circumstance, you can keep your eyes on the Lord and know He is there with you in the midst of your pain. It is well with your soul because you can keep your eyes focused on Him and learn through it and use it, and God has used it in some amazing ways. I've been able to share the gospel with so many people because of that, and just the road that we've walked. So I just want to encourage you, no matter what you're going through, God has a plan for it.
Remember
go ahead and give the band one more round of applause. They did a great job, as always. And you guys are in for a special treat tonight because you don't have to hear me speak. So we're ending our relationship series, and I thought, what better way to do it than get some different perspectives? And so we have a couple who are just barely married, and we have a couple who've been married a long time and have so many kids, and so they bring a different perspective. And so I'm so excited to have my friends Eric and Christy, and they've been such good friends of mine, so you guys can come on up and take a seat up here. And then our own Justin and Chelsea as well. And they're going to come up, and if you guys would just start out and take about 30 seconds, introduce yourself, talk a little bit about what you do and who you are, and how long you've been married, and then I'll start and we'll just start asking some questions.
Do we have to sit next to each other?
I think I should have got a different couple. So why don't you guys start out and just introduce yourself?
All right, I'm Christy and this is Eric. We've been married for 18 years, dated 5 years before that, and we have 5 children. So, go from 15 to 8 years old.
And you're still alive. Still alive. We'll see how it goes tonight.
I'm Chelsea. This is Justin. We have been married for 11 months yesterday. No, 10 months. 10 months. Sorry, 10 months yesterday. And we dated for 3 years previous to that and had a long distance relationship.
Okay, so obviously some very different backgrounds, and we're excited to hear both of your perspectives on some different things. So starting out with you, Eric and Christy, what's the key to staying married for a long time?
You said I have to behave, so I'll behave.
I think for us it's a lot of grace. Just remembering that God's gracious to us, so we need to be gracious to one another. That's really, I think, one of the things that being willing to ask for forgiveness and being willing to give forgiveness as well. So I think that's.
I would agree with that. It's true. If you can't forgive each other, because you're going to have differences, and you're going to have, quarrels and circumstances come up, and, when one's weak, the other needs to be strong, and when one's, vice versa. You're there to uplift each other and hold each other up. And so there's a lot of ups and downs in that time. And so I think that's
okay. Awesome. So we're going to jump over to you guys now. Now you've only been married a short period of time. What surprised you in marriage so far?
For me, I think how hard it is to date now. Since we lived 2 hours apart before, every time we'd see each other, it was like a vacation. It was a date. It was so much fun. And then we got married and everyday life happened, and it was like, oh, hey, how you doing? Okay, hey, how you doing? So we have to plan dates out now to actually have fun together.
And we came up with our answers separate, actually, so this is funny, but I was going to say how hard it is to have quality time together. We always have our phones, our computers, our TVs on, and for us to just shut it all down is kind of tough. So.
Thank you for sharing that. So back over to Eric and Christy, we're going to dig in here a little bit about family life. So how do you raise kids that love Jesus? From what I can tell of your kids, they seem to love Jesus, and not everyone who's in ministry has kids who love Jesus. Some people feel like Jesus steals their parents away from them. But you seem to really raise kids that love Jesus and are passionate about talking about him and sharing about him with their friends. So how do you raise kids that love Jesus?
You want to take that one first?
I think for me, how do I raise kids that love Jesus? I feel like, I think when I think about that question, it's more or less, how do you teach them about Jesus and show that love of Christ more, and for them to accept the love of Christ, because it's an acceptance thing that they have to get to, accepting Christ. And so I think, there are times where I have to ask for forgiveness, and I show that to them, and I show them that I messed up, and I show them how God's forgiven me, and I ask for their forgiveness. So constantly just showing them grace in that way and being an example of that, and giving them grace when they need it too as well. So it kind of goes back and forth. I'm not afraid to stand firm that I'm always right. Even though it's kind of hard sometimes, but I have to show them that I'm wrong sometimes, and to show them that and how God has forgiven me and things like that. So just an example of day-to-day life with them, being that with them. So
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
You have anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, I very similar. I think praying for them is a big thing too. Like from the time Christy was pregnant with our oldest, Gracie, we started praying for our children. I prayed, when Jesus and his family, they went to Jerusalem, and then they're on the way back, and he got lost, and they went back and found him, and he said, hey, didn't you know I'd be in my Father's house? But then it said, it has just a little snippet said, and Jesus grew in wisdom and stature and favor with God and man. And so we pray that for our children. Like that's a specific prayer for them almost every day. And we pray that they will know Christ and that they will love Him and be a devoted follower of Him. And we pray that like every single day because it's an ongoing thing. It's a lifetime thing. It's not just okay, they got saved, they got baptized. Okay, we're good. It's a constant thing. And so I think praying for them and like Chrissy said, just humility as parents. It's real easy, and we're not perfect at all, but it's real easy to just say, well, I'm your parent because I said so, be authoritarian, which is what I tend towards a lot of times, but being humble and saying, hey, this is a weakness I have. Not just even forgiveness, but being honest about your weaknesses as a parent with your kids. Say, I struggle with this, and I'm working through it. And sometimes we ask our kids to hold us accountable on things. Let us know if we're doing this, and they do, so.
We're going to jump back over to Justin and Chelsea, and you both are leaders in your workplaces, in some either supervisor or on the path to being a supervisor. And so we have some young people here, some who aren't here tonight, some who are college students. So as a young professional, how do you deal with difficult people in the workplace?
Usually I have to take a big, deep breath first before I deal with anyone. I'm a supervisor at an urgent care, so I have to deal with a lot of difficult employees. So in that case, usually I try to remain non-judgmental, realistic, reasonable. Like in every situation I have to step back and take in, be empathetic, like realize the person's point of view. And usually when I'm in a tough situation where I'm like writing somebody up, they're getting in trouble, I have to sit back, and while I let them vent and let their side of the story out, I'm sitting there in my head praying, like, God, please let me say the right thing and handle this, because I'm brand new as a supervisor. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't have kids to discipline, so I have no idea what I'm doing. But I'm usually like, God, please help me handle this person correctly. Yeah, make sure I handle, every person's different, so I have to make sure I handle that difficult person in the correct way, in the right time and situation. So usually praying while they're talking and listening to them at the same time.
And for me, it's I've just been trying to build relationships with people and trust, and then trying to love them like Jesus would. It just brings me closer to them, and it makes them easier to love for me.
Thank you. So one of the key things in marriage is obviously learning to deal with conflict and resolution well. So how do you deal with conflict, and how do you resolve conflict? Or how should we?
Very differently. Very differently. I'll tell you, when we were first married, I don't know, it probably been, I don't even think Gracie was born, maybe just a year, 18 months, something like that. We had, to this day, it's still our absolute worst fight, like the worst. And typically, I'm going to deal with it right away, and I want to apologize for what I'm wrong with right away. Christy needs a little more time. A lot of times, it's not uncommon for Christy to leave the house for a little while just to cool off, calm down. When we were first married, I didn't get that at all. And so one time, she was ready to leave the house and go cool off, But I was like, no, it's my turn. I'm leaving the house this time. And I got really mad. And so I went and I slammed the door and I broke the glass out of the door. I slammed it so hard, like shattered everywhere. That ended the argument. Like, I was like, okay, now I'm a jerk. Right? So, but I say that to say what I've learned is, like, I used to have trouble with her cooling off. But what I've learned is that we do deal with conflict differently. And so I've learned to try to give her space. Like, I know that's something that she needs. Like, we don't have to deal with it right away. Just because I want to doesn't mean she wants to or she's even ready to. And so, I've learned that I have got to give her freedom to deal with conflict, how she deals with conflict. And the other thing is, you know, there's somewhere where I'm always wrong. Like, it doesn't matter how right I am, I'm always wrong somewhere. Maybe it's the way I respond. Maybe she was wrong at first, but I responded wrongly in return or whatever. And so I always look for that point. I pray and ask God, where have I been wrong in this situation? And I go to that. I name the wrong. I name how I've offended her. I tell her how I've, like, not just the offense, but how it affected her emotionally and personally. And I apologize and I ask, I use the word, will you forgive me? Like, you have to, no one says the words, will you forgive me anymore, because it feels awful to ask that question. Like, I think that's the worst question in all of life. It just is. If I'm being, for me, it's hard. And so we do that. And then when she asks for forgiveness, I say, yeah, I forgive you. You know, I love you and I forgive you. So that's just, I don't know. What do you think?
Repeat the question again.
How do you deal with conflict and resolution of conflict?
In our marriage or just period?
So, however you want to, if you want to talk about marriage, if you want to talk about marriage and also then
it's
personal
fine.
relationships,
That's fine.
either way.
Well, I do have a certain situation that came up one time. He had made me mad, and so I went and told God on him, basically. Not to tell God on him, but I do think there's a lesson learned with it, is that we sometimes take our problems directly to the person and not to God first, and dealing with things and letting God come in and handle that. And we think, well, that's kind of just out there to let God handle it. But I specifically listed these things off to God that I was upset with. And I said, this, and this is where I've been hurt. And I kid you not, it was about an hour later, and I never mentioned these things to Eric. I had never told him that I was upset. He came back and listed almost in exact order, asking forgiveness for those things that he had done. And I remember just being so shocked, and I think it was just God saying, listen, I hear you. I'm listening to you, and, you know, I want to be there and help you with this and resolve this relationship. And I think it's just neat to see that. So I think for me, it's really trusting that God hears us and taking these situations to Him and allowing Him to either change our hearts in that process or change the other person's heart, and not us trying to do it ourselves. So
Both of those are very good and very convicting. Back over to Justin and Chelsea, you talked about how life's a little bit different now that you're married versus dating. But the other thing that changes is our relationships when we're like in college or right after college. Then you get a few years removed. Friendships work differently. Relationships work differently. So how are relationships with friends and peers different kind of post-college as you move into young adult life?
I feel like you figure out who your true friends are, the people that are going to actually make an effort and really reach out. And some people just aren't good at that, so there's one person always making the effort. And in that same case, those relationships are usually deeper. They've gone on for longer, you get to know the person better, and that's why they want to reach out to have a relationship with you, and they really like you for who you are, like, and respect who you are more so. Where in college, it's like, hey, you live down the street from me, cool, we're going to be best friends, whatever. But I think they're just deeper.
Yeah, mine's pretty much the same thing. It was, in college, it was more on the surface, kind of let's just have fun and, you know, be good friends. And now it's community support, building deeper bonds, and especially having Christian friends now. I had 0 in college, so that's been a big thing for me as well.
So back over to Eric and Christy, you guys are busy people. not only between the church and your family and your community work that you do, and then jobs that you do on the side, and hobbies and life and sports teams. You guys are incredibly busy. Well, I imagine, someday you might pick up a half time for a hobby. So how do you balance the demands of life and ministry with your relationships with family and friends?
So that's a good question. Lots of practice. Everything's practice. But one of the things that we found is, while we do set boundaries, in fact, there's a great book by Dr. Henry Cloud called Boundaries, and that's been so transformative in our lives to learn to say no to certain things at certain times, and that's okay. And if someone wants part of my time and it's time for me to have family time, that's the most important appointment that I have for that week. And so it's okay to say no. But also, we've learned that our kids and our family, even our extended family to an extent, we include them in ministry. It's like we do ministry as a family. And we've been doing that. We made that decision several years ago. Even when I was a youth pastor, we just decided that, look, if I'm going to have to do some off hours and stuff like that, our kids are going to come and they're going to learn how to serve alongside of us. And we're going to do this together. This is something that we're invested in together. This is something that we decided as a family we're going to serve together and live together in that way. And so part of the balance is learning what that looks like. That's what we do as a family. We love other people because Christ loved us first. And so it's teaching them that and ingraining that in the DNA of our family, that it's okay. Everything doesn't have to be separate all the time. Ministry time means that I'm putting family time aside, and family time means I'm always putting ministry time aside. So a lot of times those bleed into each other. And not that, like I said, not that we don't say no and have just time to whatever, watch a movie on the couch or go out and have fun, go for a hike, whatever. But just learning that, hey, it's okay for kids and even extended family. There's times where my extended family who lives in Lancaster County or Limerick, Royersford, that area, where they want to come and be with us. They say, you know what? Why don't we go serve today? This is what we're doing. We want to be with you too, but we've already committed to this. Why don't you come along with us and join us? And they do that sometimes. So I think that works out pretty well.
You have anything to add to that?
I don't think I do. I think I'll say as a wife standpoint, him being the pastor position, and my kids have to kind of come with us. If they didn't join in, if I didn't join in, I wouldn't see my husband ever. So I want to be a part of his life, and I want to serve with him. So because we've set that, and we've hauled our family with us everywhere we go, they're actually very well-rounded children right now. And so they can behave.
We'll see. We got a few years to go, but
we do. But they're sitting in the service right now, and they're being well behaved, maybe by electronics, but it does help get adjusted to life, and it teaches them why not learn it now, about ministry, and you have to figure out that balance, and it's been a balance to figure out. I will tell you that. So we've had ups and downs.
And we're constantly adjusting. There's a constant adjustment.
You'll never just get it.
Yeah. Constantly have to we reevaluate almost on a monthly basis, sometimes on a weekly basis. We'll sit down on a Sunday evening or Monday morning, look at our schedule and say, okay, and if something's not working, one says, hey, this isn't working. We got to figure a different strategy out, and we adjust accordingly.
Whether you have children or not, you still have to balance this out as a couple. If you're not married, you have to balance this off with your work and your family and your friends who you're involved with. So as a whole, everyone has to figure out what that looks like in their life and the balance of it. So
that's really good. Back over to Justin and Chelsea. You guys are in your older 20s now. If you could go back and you could tell your younger 20-year-old self, or roughly around that age, some advice. We have some people who are that age listening, some people listening online, some people will hear it later on the podcast. But what advice would you give them that you would give yourself if you could go back and say, hey, if I could do this differently, I wish somebody had told me this?
Chelsea actually helped us with this for me at least, she had told me, let's talk about what we want out of marriage before. How many kids, what we want to do with our bank account, what we want to do with money, how we want to budget, where we want to live, all that stuff. And if we didn't do that, we would have been pretty lost, I think. So I would definitely tell any 20-year-old that same thing.
So essentially have conversations with someone you're in.
Communicate and have conversations with that person and just say your expectations.
Well, I was gonna say, keep moving. Don't stop moving. When you get older, things get harder, and literally, like as silly as it sounds, I wish I would have kept working out, kept moving, kept doing things, and just to follow your dreams. If you have a dream, go for it. When things knocked me down, I was like, oh no, it's the end of the world. But it's because God has a plan for you, and if I had followed my dreams of what I thought my dream was and not God's plan, I wouldn't have met him and I wouldn't be where I am right now. So I definitely would just tell myself, take a chill pill, keep running, take a chill pill, and realize that God has a plan for you.
I feel like we should make a poster of that with a cat on it.
Yes.
Take a chill pill, keep running.
Take a chill pill, but keep running.
Thank you, that was great. So, Eric and Christy, we've kind of asked Justin and Chelsea this question already about your workplace, but you deal with people on multiple levels. In your church, in your community, people who are in relationship with your children, and so how do you deal with difficult people? Do you have a process? Do you have a strategy for dealing with difficult people? What does that look like?
I've been hurt a lot. I'll tell you that. And it's interesting. I feel like sometimes the more I try to love someone, the more hurt I get. And I tend to get myself in situations. And then I respond not calmly. But I pray that God moves me. Being honest. So there are some situations where I was hurt so bad that I'm just being real. And I asked God to move me. And he did. But you can't always move. So I think really, man, like you said, taking a step back and really evaluating the situation. And it's really hard to do sometimes when you're dealing with a situation that's difficult. But I've learned too, the more prayer, because it softens your heart and it ends up softening the other person's heart as well, because God's doing that. And I find I can see God working through that a lot of times, just through prayer, because there's nothing I can do, because we're human. So
I appreciate you sharing that.
yeah.
What for you, Eric?
Yeah, so one of the things that's important to realize is when you're dealing with conflict with someone, you can't worry or become obsessed with what you can't control. And I can't control how you act, behave, what you say, what you do. And so that's really important, I think, for me to realize. The Bible has a couple verses in Proverbs that says that a kind word turns away wrath, but a harsh answer stirs up anger. And so that's something really important. And then in the New Testament it says, be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. And so I think that it's really important just to, like you both have already said, take that step back. Listen to what the other person's saying. Not so you can have the right answer, not so you can be right, not so you can win the argument. But someone is upset because they're either afraid or hurt or worried. There's something going on that's made that person upset. And so really listen not to their words but to their heart that's behind the conflict, and not trying to control them. You can only control how you respond. So let them act how they act, and then I can control how I respond to whatever they do. And that's all me. Whether it's a good response, a bad response, an angry response, a kind response, and that's all me. So I think that's real important in dealing with conflict, is always keep those things in mind.
That's really good. Thank you. Justin and Chelsea, both young people in the workplace. There's usually Usually young people don't go into the workplace and they're suddenly the highest ranking person in charge, even though sometimes we like to think we have the best ideas, and sometimes we do. So what do you do as a young adult? How do you lead your peers and coworkers and your organization when you don't always have a title or a position to create the change that you want to see?
Chelsea always does have the best ideas, so I don't know. She might not be able to answer that.
I try to. I'm not saying that I'm great at it, but I try to always lead by example with friends, coworkers, anybody. Like if I want them to be working hard, I'm going to show them that I'm going to work hard, and that's leading by example. And then I also am who I am, and I'm not going to change. So no matter who I'm around, like he doesn't like that answer probably because like I can improve myself, and I'm always working towards improving myself, but I'm not going to change who I am for other people. I'm just going to lead by example, be me. I know I have non-Christian friends, and as soon as I bring up church or something, they're like, okay. But I'm like, this is me. If you don't like it, like, sorry, but it's me.
Yeah, that's good. Do you have anything to add to that, Justin?
Yeah, I was going to say, kind of acting like God is your manager. It's just a different way to look at work, and it's what a lot of people don't do, I think, and so it kind of sets you apart from other people that way. And when you think of God as your manager or your supervisor, you're going to work harder and work a little different than you would for probably just your supervisor.
Yeah, that's a good answer. Thank you. So I know that you brought some books. So before we get to the last question, do you want to suggest some of these books to people that you brought?
Yeah, there's two we don't have that because we give them out all the time. One is Boundaries by Henry Cloud. The other one is DNA Relationships by Dr. Gary Smalley. Those have been really good. Yeah, so these are just some of our fun. You want to talk about that one has been huge for us.
Stormy L. Martin has a whole series of books. Power of Praying Husband, Power of Praying Children, Adult Children,
Power of Praying Wife.
Power of Praying Wife I don't have with me.
Christy started going through Power of a Praying Wife, and it literally changed our life. Yeah. I mean, like she started praying for me very specifically and methodically and intentionally, and it changed the way I do a lot of things. I guarantee we wouldn't be here today had she not gone through, committed to praying for me.
And it's just amazing. They're very simple walkthroughs, and we've had a few children's books that we love. The Blessing is one by I think that's by Henry Cloud. Is two. I'm not sure. One is the Strong-Willed Child. If you have children, if you have a strong-willed child specifically, there's some stuff you can apply to any of them. But if you have a child that's really, really difficult, I'm not gonna say which one of our children we bought that for, but it's pretty good. And now listen, I will tell you this: there may be some stuff in here that you don't agree with, so you can take it with a. But one of the things that's important for parenting, and this one's really good too, is Paul David Tripp, Parenting 14 Gospel Principles, is parenting by grace, not punishing children, but disciplining children instead, and what that looks like. And so those are just some books we thought we'd bring that have meant a lot to us.
Thank you for sharing. Yeah. So our final question, and this is going to be for both couples, and we'll start with you guys and then Justin and Chelsea. So what helps you grow close to God personally and as a couple?
One of the things that for me personally is several years ago, I started reading through the entire Bible every year, and that discipline, creating that discipline in my life has made all the difference in the world. I mean, it has absolutely drawn me closer to Christ. I hear God speak through the Scripture, and it's changed the course of our life and what we do in ministry and everything else. So for me personally, that's one of the things that's really drawn me closer to God is reading through the entire Bible every year and being intentional about that.
I think for me, it's definitely the uncertainty of life has just kind of kept me on my toes and close to God. Through our journey as a couple, things constantly change. Many new trials or situations have arisen that we have to figure out, and a lot of it's just relying on God through the smallest decisions to the biggest decisions. So just that uncertainty of life has kept me on my knees. So
that's interesting. I completely So how about as a couple? How should couples draw close to God together, or how have you been able to draw close to God together?
I think one is praying together, which is something that I struggle with leading as a husband. But this year I feel I've been much more intentional about it actually, and I think that's helped a lot. And I think just being real with each other about your struggles, and talking through that stuff, and praying for each other in those times, being able to speak wisdom from the Scripture in each other's lives in an appropriate way, in an appropriate manner. I think those, for us, those are the things that have drawn us closer. And we serve, like we minister together, like serving God together. And giving each other space to serve God on their own too, with their own gifts and their own talents and stuff. And so I think even though sometimes it's apart, like Christy knowing that she has my blessing and my support to serve God in the way that He's created her to, it really helps draw us closer together. And serving together, I mean, that draws us close to God because we have that same experience and that same heart and the same mission in life, and that draws us to God together. Where I don't think we would otherwise. So.
Right.
It's really good. Do you have anything to add to that?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. So Justin and Chelsea, same question to you guys. How do you draw close to God personally? And then how do you draw close to God together as a couple?
This is kind of weird, but I say audiobooks. I know that's really weird, but I don't live a life where I am planning a church and I'm constantly it's terrible, but I don't have God constantly on my mind. I have everyday life, the stresses of everyday life, and I'm not remembering to pray all day long or even every day. And if I listen to an audiobook on my way, I listen to a Christian audiobooks, whether it's encouraging, informative. I'm a nerd. I hate reading. It's terrible, but I really dislike reading. But I love audiobooks. So on my way to work and on my way home every day, I listen to it, and it just really gets me mentally, reminds me to pray, reminds me that I need to be closer to God throughout every day of my life. And then if I'm not listening to an audiobook, I'm listening to a Christian radio station, because it's something that I need to do to create a habit to remind me on a daily basis, not just Sunday at church, not just when I have to. So it's me personally.
And me personally is just loving or trying to love people. That's just always brings me closer. It's a constant learning experience, constantly growing, and always asking questions to God and praying. So all that together brings me closer.
What do you do together as a couple to draw close to God?
Volunteering together is probably one of my favorite things, at least, and being involved in Horizon, obviously.
Yeah.
Tithing together, things like that. Discipleship, small groups. But volunteering is probably my favorite, I would say. Special Olympics at Villanova was awesome.
Yeah. Having friends that are Christian that we can actually hang out with together has made a big difference, I think, for us. Thanks, guys, for being our friends. But yeah, just hanging out with people, it gets us talking. It's comfortable. It's good. I think it's good. But it helps grow our marriage.
Yeah, and the closer that we are to God, together or separately, as we get closer, the best our marriage is, I think.
Absolutely.
So that's when we're happiest. That's when we're smiling the most. That's when we're having fun. So
yeah, and we help to keep each other on track. When one person sees the other person is not doing so well right now, we really help to hey, step it up. Let's go.
Awesome. Well, thank you both. I'd like to pray over both couples just real quickly, and then you guys can sit back down. We'll have some announcements and we'll be done. Lord Jesus, thank you so much for Justin and Chelsea and for Eric and Christy. Lord, thank you for their willingness to get up in front of people, which isn't always fun, and just share a little bit about their lives. Lord, thank you for their willingness to be transparent. Lord, I pray that you'll bless these marriages. Lord, I pray for everyone in this room that you'll help us to have healthy relationships with our friends, with our coworkers, with our fellow students, Lord, with our families, with our churches, with our communities. Lord, that we'll truly live like Jesus and love people like Jesus did. Lord, I pray again that you just bless these couples, Lord, that you would encourage them, that you'll help them to love each other more and more each day and love you more and more each year. And I pray all these things like I believe Jesus would. Amen. Let's go ahead and give them a hand. They did a great job. Thank you guys. guys.